Welcome to Payne Theological Seminary. We look forward to your participation and work as a student. I am Michael Joseph Brown, the Academic Dean, and your instructor for this course. I welcome you to a school whose tradition goes back to the late 1800s and whose mission continues to be relevant today. We are still in the business of educating African American leaders for the tasks of liberation, reconciliation, social justice, and liberty. Although many associate these concerns with African American or Black theology, the concept of social concern is ingredient to what it means to be Methodist. Methodists have been behind many of the great social movements in the United States and around the world. Methodists have been dedicated to a gospel that goes beyond the walls of the church. In this sense, Methodism has embraced the idea of a social gospel made prominent in what has been labeled the Third Great Awakening in the United States, an idea that I am sure you will learn about in your History of Christianity courses. One of the key ideas inherent in this awakening is that the gospel is much more than me and my, and is dependent much more on us and our. The gospel is about our salvation. The change we seek in society is for all of us. Payne Theological Seminary sits right in the middle of that tradition. We embrace tightly the idea of our religion rather than the idea of my religion. We welcome you to this world. You are at a school that is dedicated to the liberation of all people. Look at the Payne mission statement. The education we provide here is directed at African Americans, but its purpose is to promote the dignity of all humankind. You are now part of this tradition. In African Methodism, we call our founder, Bishop Richard Allen, the Apostle of Freedom. We acknowledge that all institutions are deficient compared to their ideals, but we also acknowledge that institutions set ideal goals in order to achieve them. At Payne, the liberation of all human beings is foremost in our educational mission and project. Another place you can look to see where Payne places its value is in our student learning outcomes. I ask you to become familiar with these outcomes because they are the standard against which you, we, and our accreditors will judge our effectiveness as an institution. We have recently revised our student learning outcomes in order to better reflect what we seek to accomplish as an educational institution. In each course, the syllabus will instruct you as to what aspect of our student learning outcomes this class will achieve. Your feedback on these courses is essential to the effective functioning of our school. As a primarily online institution, we are different from many African American theological institutions. We see ourselves as progressive in this regard. Our mission, as we see it, is to educate as many persons as we can for a liberatory ministry in the world. Most of our peers are either not online or are doing one or two courses on the internet. Our goal is to make theological education available to individuals across the world, regardless of where they may live, work, and do ministry. Our aim in this video is to acquaint you with the faculty, staff, and other individuals you will encounter while at Payne. Of course, the first individual you will come across is Reverend Dr. Leah Gaskin Fitzhugh. Her area of expertise is practical theology. She has guided Payne for 12 years, and we will miss her leadership beginning in June. Dr. Fitzhugh has guided Payne through the many obstacles that necessarily accompany a change as significant as moving from a residential school to an online institution. Dr. Solomon Avotri has been with Payne for over 20 years. His work in biblical studies has been extremely influential upon our students for all of this time. Dr. Voltry's expertise is in the Hebrew Bible or Old Testament. Nevertheless, he teaches courses across the curriculum, including the required course on cultural hermeneutics, which means contextualized biblical interpretation, that all students must take before leaving Payne. In an odd twist of fate, Dr. Voltry uses my own book, Blackening of the Bible, as a textbook in his course on modern biblical interpretation. Dr. Charles S. Brown has been with Payne for almost as long as Dr. Voltry. Dr. Brown has been a leading figure in Christian ethics since he began his work at Boston University in the early 1970s. His work on the implications of social policies on persons of African American descent has been the foundation of many subsequent works on the topic. Dr. Brown left academia as a faculty member at Yale Divinity School to become the pastor of Bethel Baptist Church in Dayton before lending his efforts to the work of Payne Theological Seminary. Dr. Roger Evans has been with Payne for roughly 2 decades. Dr. Evans' interests circulate around issues of gender and sexuality in the ancient world. A graduate of the Ohio State University Religion program, Dr. Evans has established himself as an important voice in the area of early Christian history through the publication of his 3 books on the subject. Unlike many of his colleagues, Dr. Evans understands the contextual nature of historical investigation, and his classes reflect this concern. Dr. Evans' work displays a strong regard for what matters most to persons of African descent. Dr. Betty Holly is a graduate of Payne Theological Seminary and the University of Cincinnati, where she received a doctorate in environmental studies. Her work revolves around the relationship of African Americans and issues of the environment. Dr. Holly has been on the national stage with her work. She recently participated in the work of the Smithsonian institutions around the issue of the environment. She is a presiding elder in the African Methodist Episcopal Church, which means she divides her work between Payne and her other obligations. Nevertheless, Dr. Holly is dedicated to the successful completion of our students in the MDiv program. As I pointed out earlier, I am Michael Joseph Brown. I am a professor of New Testament and Christian origins, as well as the academic dean of Payne Theological Seminary. I have worked in higher education for around 20 years. Although I am not captured in the core faculty, my presence matters nevertheless. I will and have taught courses on New Testament, early Christian prayer, early African Christianity, and doctoral courses on the Greco-Roman backgrounds of Christianity in general. With such a background, Dr. Brown is among less than 10 African American scholars who have the ability to teach the Greco-Roman influence on early Christianity in the United States. As such, Michael Brown is an internationally recognized scholar on these matters. He served for several years as the Greco-Roman director of the International Society of Biblical Literature's Greco-Roman Scholarly Forum. Although the author of 4 books, Dr. Brown is engaged in the liberatory effectiveness of Payne students. The remainder of Payne staff is dedicated to your success. Ms. Althea Smoot is our registrar and is more than happy to help you to register for classes, understand your degree, completion requirements, and is just a lovely helping hand in what we consider the Payne experience. Ms. Lynn Ayers is Director of Library Services and our cataloger. Mr. Alan Costner is our Chief Financial Officer and Director of Financial Services and Human Resources. You should contact Mr. Costner if you have any questions about your bill or any larger questions about what it means to be at Payne. Ms. Elise Peru is the business office manager. She is your primary contact with the business office and will work diligently to make sure you complete your degree. Mrs. Diana Wag is the accounting consultant and works with Mrs. Peru to help us accomplish these things. And finally, in the business office is Ms. Pat Copley, who's our financial aid director, who works diligently to make sure our students receive all the financial aid they can receive, and and allows them to graduate successfully with as little debt as possible. Reverend Jules Dunham Howie is our Director of Development. She has secured generous financial grants from the Lilly Endowment, the Arthur Viney Davis Foundation, and other foundations for the promotion of Payne's educational mission. She is a resource that all students can go to and use. She also has several internship opportunities available for students. In the President's office, we have Mrs. Mary Jo Lewis and Mrs. Marilyn Hatcher. Mary Jo Lewis is the Special Administrative Assistant to the President and is your chief point of contact with President Leah Gaskin Fitzhugh. Mrs. Marilyn Hatcher will announce all special projects and other things related to goings on at Payne. You will see her name on many events and other promotions. And finally, but probably most importantly for you as a student, the Reverend William Fisher is our Student Government Association president. All students can belong to the Student Government Association. There is a link for Student Government Association participation on our Blackboard site. Reverend Fisher is more than happy to have you participate. There are all kinds of information that you can find on the Student Government site on Blackboard, and we encourage you to look at them. Again, my brothers and sisters, welcome to Payne Theological Seminary, an education you will never forget.